Charles, let's go to Chicago, where the city has had more than 760 homicides last year and is suffering a ghastly spate of gun violence, mostly on the south and west sides. Now, there's new data showing that the city is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to settle police misconduct cases. Chicago reporters analyze the numbers, and they find that most of the lawsuits come from everyday encounters between police and African American or Latino residents. Between 2011 and 2016, folks, Chicago spent more than $280 million on 943 misconduct lawsuits involving everything from false arrest and illegal searches to serious instances of excessive force. Now, most people have heard of the big ticket settlements like the $5 million paid to the family of Laquan McDonald. Of course, 17-year-old shot 16 times by cops in October 2014. But the median settlement amount the city pays is around $35,000, like the deal made in April 2016 of a case for false arrest. They paid out $100,000 for an illegal sex abuse allegation that same month. Now, Chicago rarely borrows enough to pay for the settlements, which means taxpayers are taking a huge financial hit because of high interest rates. Joining us via FaceTime from Chicago is Jonah Newman, the reporter for the Chicago Reporter. And Jonah, you know, it's interesting to me, you never hear Sheriff David Clark. You never hear President Donald Trump. You never hear any of these people who love talking about law enforcement say anything about their everyday abuses happening. And also, you never hear any of these conservative fiscal people who are talking about our precious tax dollars. They don't say jack about nearly $300 million being spent by police abuse. And that's just the settlements. It doesn't count the millions of dollars taxpayers are funding to pay the lawyers who defend the cops.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that's the heart of why we started this project. We actually launched it last year with lawsuits from 2012 to 2015. We've just added the 2011 and 2016 lawsuits. And you're exactly right? We talk about police misconduct as a civil rights issue. Of course, it is a civil rights issue, but I think it's also important to talk about it as a fiscal accountability issue, right? We're the ones paying for this. We're on the hook. And even if you don't live in the neighborhoods that are experiencing the brunt of this police misconduct, you're still paying for it. You're still affected by it. And I think that's what we're trying to show with this project.
It is stunning to me how very few political leaders will say a word about this. They will not chastise police for the millions being spent because of how they act. They will not say a word. They won't condemn. And guess what? You won't hear jack from the police officers union. You won't hear anything from the national police unions as well. Oh, they're amazingly quiet when it comes to these millions of dollars being spent.
Well, and I think the other thing that was pretty surprising to me when we started looking into this is that not only are they not talking about it publicly, but they're also not doing anything about it, right? There are things that they could do. There are other cities, New York, for example, Portland, that actually look at police misconduct lawsuits as, you know, one more piece of the police accountability mechanism, right? You can see, okay, we're spending millions of dollars a year on police misconduct lawsuits. Let's look at these lawsuits and figure out what are the trends, what's common among them, right? And what are the maybe policies or practices that we could change that might A, reduce the actual misconduct, and B, reduce the cost of this misconduct the taxpayers are paying year after year, and the city's just not doing that. And coming back to this year, there have been, the Justice Department finished their investigation in January. Before that, the city's inspector general, and before that, the mayor's task force on police accountability have all said, listen, Mayor Emanuel, this is something that your administration should be doing, and they're still not doing it.
Jonah, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much, and great job.
Thank you very much for having me.
Real quick here, I'm going to go to our panel. George, I'll start with you. In 25 years, this was a previous story from Crane, Chicago. In 25 years, it cost the city of Chicago $662 million in police settlements.
I think you have a Democratic mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who hasn't taken control of the police department. You also have poor training. I'm a former police officer. I can tell you some of these police officers are not trained. When I was a police officer, I had the attitude that we were pretty much bulletproof, in that we can handle any situation. And our job was to de-escalate situations, not to escalate situations. That's the way we handled our police work. We were to de-escalate anything and bring it to a peaceful solution. We were more peace officers. But I also have a pet peeve. I cannot stand black uniforms on cops. I think we had a militarization of the police departments during the last 10 years where everybody thinks they're a SWAT team member.
Last 10 years?
Well, everybody dresses like they're a SWAT team member.
If you go tell Fred Hampton's family when a cop stormed them in 1969, they can tell you right now that that was the case then as well.
The case there.
Some of these cases are not a case of training, even though you're right. There should be more training, but do you really need to be trained not to shoot somebody in the back 5 times down in South Carolina?
Well,
the problem with dealing with this is it gets us into the...
When they have a job that they're afraid of, they should quit. I agree with you. They should quit. This is not a job.
My father was in law enforcement. I mean, this is not a job for you if you're afraid, okay? It gets us into the subject of race and policing and racism in America when we talk about the disproportionate stops on African Americans. That's the subject the police unions don't want to talk about.
Scott, real quick.
The juxtaposition here is amazing and very dysfunctional. On one hand, you have one of the highest homicide rates in the city. You have police officers on just day-to-day duty being sued for just their day-to-day interaction. So it's part training, but it's dysfunctional because it's not reducing the homicide rate.
Real quick.
You can't retrain racism. That's pretty simply put. You can't.
You're not born with it either.
Right,
so you're trained in racism,
environmentally
as well as your home.
Not, I mean, one thing that we're seeing is you can't retrain it.
We
can talk about training all we want.
We had a case in Washington, D.C. where a white police officer arrested a black lady for having a party for a noise ordinance. I think everybody in the department wants to take that case back. It wouldn't have happened. You're absolutely right. But the black officer in the car should have stopped it on the spot.
I gotta go to break right now, but also you mentioned the Democratic mayor in Chicago. New York paid a whole bunch of money under Republican Rudy Giuliani.
Exactly.
I'm just saying that ain't a Democrat or Republican thing. It's a police thing.
Protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.